welcome to our White Towel video panel. Here with Ed Willis and Ben Kuzma. Ed, we'll start with you. The last, I don't know, really since 2011, the trip to California, after being this great road trip Canuck fans would want to see during the sort of the President's Trophy run era, turned into a bit of a Death Valley, but it's a little bit of a different story now, isn't it?
Oh, yeah, 100%. It probably started changing about 2-3 years ago when the shine fell off of both Los Angeles and Anaheim. But this year, this is an opportunity for the Canucks. This isn't something to be feared. They've got to go in. The Kings are clearly in a down phase. San Jose we're not sure about, but they haven't gotten off to a great start. Anaheim, I think, have surprised some people, but I look at that lineup and I don't see that as being sustainable. And I think also in the bigger picture, these are teams the Canucks are going to have to beat out if they're going to entertain a playoff position. And I think the other thing for people to look at is this a changing of the guard in the Western Conference? You look at the standings now, and there are teams that have traditionally been in the top spots. Now they're struggling to stay above water. Teams like the Canucks, teams like Arizona. Teams like, help me with another one.
Well, I mean, everyone's
have made a jump forward this year.
I don't know if you put Colorado in that category, but everyone's saying Colorado are Cup contenders this year, right? I just think you're absolutely
they're
right.
not really a surprise. You may be surprised at how well they're doing it, but they've got a couple of big-time injuries now, too.
Yeah. Ben, how do you see how... I mean, it's funny, Ed brings this up now. Instead of just plugging through the season, now you're starting to look at how important these games are for... your playoff matchups.
Suddenly, a 3-game road trip, if they don't get at least 4 points and probably run the table, I think it's a disappointment to pick up on what Ed talked about. You go into Los Angeles, and Todd McClellan said the other day, they came off a 1-4 road trip where they were outscored 17-7, and Todd McClellan said, well, the one good thing about the trip, we found out we got a lot of guys who can't play at this level. And what does that tell you? I mean, Ben Hutton, God love Ben Hutton, he's resurrected his career. He was in the top pairing with Drew Doughty, which is probably good for Ben Hutton. I'm not sure it's that great for Doughty. You talked about Anaheim. Del Zotto and Goodbranson were pairing for a couple of games and turned into a disaster. So I think we'll concede first in the division, probably to Vegas. I think Calgary's a better team than it's shown of late. That third spot to me, guys, is really interesting too. I don't think you want to get into a wild card scenario. If the Canucks are really shooting for something to finish third in the division, even though it's 2 versus 3 scenario, that's a lot better than going after some big guns. So I just think, as they say, the sands have shifted. I mean, LA got Todd McClellan for a reason. Yeah, he coached in San Jose, coached in Edmonton. That's a tire fire right now in LA. I don't see anything happening in Anaheim, and San Jose's just kind of drifted away. So here we have a scenario where the Canucks could really run the table here and stay in the hunt, and they should be aiming for that third spot in the division. And right now, it looks doable.
Ed, I was going to say, as I was kind of thinking where we're going to go with this, I was going to say that there's no figure more divisive for the Vancouver Canucks than Jim Benning, but really when you think of the history of this team, the GM is always a lightning rod. You go back to Gillis and how he divided people. Certainly guys like Brian Burke. Do we not, or are people grudgingly having to give Benning's more credit than they wanted to when you look at how many of this year's moves have really elevated the team?
Before we go any farther, Edmonton was the other team I was trying to think about, but I was having a seniors moment. You might want to look at getting some younger people on.
We do have editing functions.
I get a lot of those.
Nikki, can we do that in the editing room there? Yeah, if they're not, then I think they're really missing something. And I think you just have to look at the roster, look at the moves he made this offseason. He upgraded 4 positions, which is really hard to do in the NHL. The draft, his drafts are all over this team. This is really his team. And when you're talking about are people surprised about this happening that fast, I think that's part of the equation is the work Benning did this offseason where he brought in proven NHL guys. Ben was talking about that Myers-Edler defensive pairing. That's a number 1 pairing. They played like it so far. Is that sustainable over 82 games? We'll find out. But right here, right now, that's the best defensive pairing I've seen in the Canucks since that 2011 season.
And the interesting thing, too, I mean, they just checked all the boxes. Great goaltending. We can talk at some point about a Markstrom extension and how that looks. But like Ed said, they checked the boxes. I mean, the funny thing about the Miller acquisition was that there was some thought at the draft that Jim was talking about a contract extension with the Canucks. And what do I care about a first-round or conditional pick because I may not be here? Well, I think in the long picture, Benning speaks to ownership. Ownership likes a GM that will say, you know what, I don't think we're that far away. We've never been that far away, even when they were far away. But the Miller acquisition, if he surpasses his 22 career goals and maybe gets to 30 at the potential with PP1, I don't think we're going to have a lot of discussions here, a lot of navel-gazing about that conditional first round pick. So that was a great get. Ferland's gaining some traction now, and like talked about the improvements on the back end, this is a much better team than it was a year ago.
All right, thanks, guys. As always, come back to thevancouversun.com, theprovince.com to see our videos, download our podcast, subscribe, and of course, read these gentlemen's fine work.